Most students think the SAT reading is about how smart you are, but in reality, it's not. You can be very intelligent and still get SAT reading questions wrong if you follow the wrong process. The SAT is not testing how smart you are, it's testing your ability to follow the correct process. Today, I'm going to show you my signature method called the RAP method, which has not been taught anywhere else and is by far the most efficient way to get all of the long text questions right on the SAT. This is the exact process I teach my blueprint students to get the questions right consistently without one, having to reread the text, and two, getting stuck between two answers. Clearly it works because I have hundreds of students that got 100 points or more increased to their SAT score in under a couple weeks. If your reading score has plateaued, then this video will definitely save you, so let's begin. So what even is this RAP method? Well, it's pretty simple. It's a three-step process. One, you need to read the text, but not just read it, you need to actively read it. You need to break up each text into bite-sized pieces. Like, break up the sentence literally into a meaning that you can understand. Like, read it and summarize it in your head and break it up into little pieces so that you can actually understand the text. What does this do? This eliminates the outcome of you needing to reread the text because you don't understand it. If you read actively and break up each sentence into little phrases that you can understand and realize what they mean, then you won't have to go back and reread the text. So break it up by piece, read actively, and summarize each sentence in your own words as you read the passage. In your own words is very important because if they throw very complex words at you, you need to summarize it in your own words so you can actually understand it. This is very important. If you don't follow this, you're not going to follow the other two. Two, make a summary of it in your head. What is the text doing? Is it negative? Is it positive? Is it making a claim? Is it disputing something? Is it a study? What is it? What's the goal of it? What's the purpose of this text? What is it doing overall? So analyze it, make a summary. Okay, this text is doing this. This text is analyzing turtles and saying that the turtles are basically dying in 7 weeks or something. I don't know. Third, predict the answer. Based off of that summary, what will the answer be? What is the text saying? And you need to literally predict what the answer will be. Maybe it's a blank, maybe it's a command of evidence question, but you need to predict what the answer is going to be based off of your analysis. So as you can tell, each step hinges on the last one. If you can't read it properly, you can't analyze it properly. If you can't analyze it properly, you can't predict the answer properly. So each step is dependent on the last one. So reading is the most important one because it's the first one. So make sure you read actively and break it up into bite-sized chunks, essentially. Now, after you do all three of these, this is how you validate your answer. Your choice needs to be directly supported by the text, literally the whole thing. If the text does not support the choice, it is incorrect. The SAT, like I said in previous videos, is a box. You need to think inside of the box. If the text literally does not support the choice, it simply can't be correct. It just doesn't make sense. So don't make any assumptions. Do not jump to conclusions. It's a very bad thing. So follow this process, and we're going to do a few examples to illustrate how effective this is in reading. First example, we have a really weird one. So the mammillaria cactus, MB, once again abbreviated, occurs only in the state of Sonora in Mexico. So this MB cactus is only in Sonora. And the smallness of its range, so the fact that it's only in this one area, makes it vulnerable to extinction. So this cactus inside of Sonora in Mexico is really only in that one place, and that makes it vulnerable to extinction because it's only in one place. Now, the traditional single species approach to conservation emphasizes the need to focus on individual species most at risk, like this cactus. So the single species approach is that we should focus on this MB cactus, which is at risk. But recently, these people say that you have an ecosystem-based approach. So they are contradicting, they're introducing a new idea. That this incorporates the many interactions between the climate, terrain, and various species of a given geographical area may lead to better outcomes for all the species. Okay, slow down. So you have MB, it's in this one location, it makes it vulnerable to extinction. Now the single species approach says that we should focus on this cactus because it's at risk. But these conservationists say that we should have a broader view, which incorporates all the other stuff, not just the cactus. So all the other stuff may actually help the cactus, not just focusing on just the cactus. And it may lead to better outcomes for all of the species in a given location. So the scientists come in, they say, okay, we should not focus on just this cactus. We should focus on everything outside of it as well. A very broad view. If this view is correct, so that is the multiple ecosystem-based approach, the single species approach could thus blank. So it's probably bad then. These scientists are saying that a broader view is better overall for the cactus, which means that the single species approach might be bad because this new idea is better. Lead to a better understanding at how the blah, blah, blah. A better understanding is positive. We're looking for a negative thing because we have this new idea, once again, that is basically saying how the old idea, which is a single species view, is bad. So if the single species view is bad, then this blank right here should be negative because it's basically making it obsolete. So we're looking for a negative choice here. B, allow conservationists to better consider how blah, blah, blah. This is a positive claim once again. We're looking for something negative that says that the single species is bad. So not A or B. Erroneously shift the focus of conservation efforts away from MB itself. Now, once again, this is not supported by the text. It says erroneously shift the focus of conservation efforts away from MB itself. The single species approach is the fact that you're focusing on this specific cactus. So why would that shift the effort away from MB? That is literally going against the text. That makes no sense. So the single species approach would shift it towards MB, if anything, not away from it. So C makes zero sense. It has to be D, but why is D correct? We need to understand why it's correct so we learn it for future questions. Fail to consider the ways in which the survival of MB may be influenced by changes in the populations of other species. What does this mean? This is saying how, considering the new view, which is the wide view, it's better than the single species because the wide view is actually considering the changes in the other populations, which affects the MB cactus specifically. And the single species approach fails to consider these other factors. It's literally just like you have a tunnel vision on the cactus if you're looking at the single species approach. That's not good. They're saying that this approach would basically single out the cactus, which is bad because you want to consider all the other factors, all of the other population changes, etc. So it is going to be D here because of that reason. And if you guys have a question on this one, feel free to drop a comment. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, let's break down this weird starfish question, which looks pretty hard because you have a lot of science words, but let's break it down with the RAP method. The morphological novelty of echinoderms, morphological novelty is like the rarity, which then it gives you a definition. So it's marine invertebrates with radial symmetry, usually star-like, around a central point. We don't really even need to read this. You just need to know that starfish is radial. It's like symmetrical in a circle, right? So you have echinoderms, impedes comparisons with other animals in which bilateral symmetry on an anterior posterior, this is head to tail, is typical. What does this mean? So echinoderms impede comparisons, which means it's different. They are different than other animals. And in those animals, you have head to tail, anterior posterior axis through a trunk. So normal animal is going to be head to tail. Whereas in the starfish, it's a radial. So it's like in a circle. So it's different. And the sea stars are particularly puzzling, thought to have evolved a headless layout from a known bilateral origin. So the sea stars are thought to have evolved to have no head and came from bilateral origins. Okay, that's important. Now you apply genomic knowledge of this thing, acorn worms, which are close relatives to sea stars. So you're basically comparing the sea stars relative to figure out what the sea star is because they're like the same thing, to the body patterning genes of PM sea stars. And they observed activity only in anterior genes. Stop there. They observed activity in only anterior, which is head genes. So the sea star has a lot of head genes, but some posterior genes limit to the edges. So what does that mean? The sea star has a lot of anterior, which is head genes, but limited tail genes, which is posterior. So which one completes the text? We need to make sure we understand it. Sea stars, echinoderms, are different than other animals. Animals have anterior to posterior head to tail axis, whereas the sea stars have a radial symmetry. And they are thought to have evolved to have no head with a known bilateral origin. It says this right here. And then they actually studied it and found that they have a ton of anterior genes and some posterior genes. So a lot of anterior genes means that they have like a head, but just like a lot of it, probably scattered around the sea star. And they have a little bit of tail genes. So this claim right here, headless layout, is going to be incorrect, certainly. Which one completes the text? Well, let me make a prediction. Prediction is that they didn't evolve to lose a head. They evolved to have the head be spread out like around the sea star. And they do have the tail genes on the edges of like the legs. Okay? So that is what the text is saying. My prediction is probably going to be something like the sea stars evolved to have more head genes and less leg genes or tail genes. That's about it. So let's look at the answers. Despite the greater prevalence of anterior genes, posterior genes active at the perimeter are primarily responsible for the star-like layout that distinguishes the radial symmetry from other echinoderms. 1. Where does it say this? Where does it show any evidence that the posterior genes are responsible for the layout? Yes, there are posterior genes active at the perimeter. This is in the text. But where does it say that it is responsible for the star-like layout? Nowhere. It never says that. So it can't be A. B. Contrary to the belief that they evolved from early ancestors with bilateral form, typical of many other animals, they originated with an atypical body layout that was neither bilaterally or radially symmetrical. So this is saying that they did not evolve from bilateral form of animals. It literally says that the sea stars are from a known bilateral origin. So they know they're from a bilateral animal. So this is incorrect, like immediately. Although the two species are closely related, there is only minimal correspondence in the genetic markers for head, tail, and trunk region development in PM and SK acorn worms. This is undermining this thing right here, where it's comparing the acorn worms to the sea stars. But there's no evidence to go against this claim. They literally say that the acorn worm can be used to compare to the sea star, and that's how they get the evidence. There's no negative evidence showing that the acorn worm can't be used to compare to the sea star. Okay, so C certainly doesn't make sense either. But why is it D? Why does D make sense? Rather than undergoing changes resulting in the elimination of a head region, they evolved to completely lack a trunk and consist of primarily a head region. Well, in the text, it says that they have activity only in anterior genes across the body and some posterior. So they have mainly head genes in the body and slight tail genes on the edges. So this literally says that the sea star has a lot of head genes. They have a head region. So since they do have a head region, they evolved to lack a trunk and primarily have a head region. This is directly supported by the text. So D is your answer. See what I mean, guys? Rap is so efficient in solving these questions, and I don't know why nobody has pointed it out sooner. It is just amazing, and I really recommend you use it. Let's move on to why this even works. Okay, I really want you to understand why this is the most efficient process by far on the SAT. The main thing that my students struggle with on reading is, one, the fact that they have to go back and reread the text. This is a big, big issue. I've touched on this in previous videos, but you do not have the time to go back and reread the text. And if you have to go back and reread it, that shows you that you really didn't read it properly. You shouldn't have to go back and read it because you probably just misread it or failed to follow the right process. So this RAP method will completely eliminate that issue of having to go back and read the text again. Just make sure you understand it properly. Like here, like I did before, I read it. As I read it, I summarized each sentence in my own words. I'm like, okay, you have echinoderms, which are radial and are compared to other animals, and the animals are head to tail. That's it. I took this little sentence right here, this whole thing, and put it into my own words so that I actually understand it. And then the next thing says that they are known to have evolved from a headless layout from a known bilateral origin. So the sea stars came from bilateral origin, and they thought to have no head. That is it. Pretty straightforward. The SAT gives you these long words and long sentences deliberately to confuse you. You can get around this by using this method. It's very important. The second issue the students run into is that they get to two choices and don't know between the two, and they have to guess. What causes this? Multiple causes. One, you didn't predict the answer. So you need to be predicting your answer actively as you read and once you finish the paragraph, because if you make the correct analysis and the right prediction, there will be one answer that matches your exact prediction. If you understand it correctly, there will literally be like conveniently one answer that matches your prediction, which is why predictions save you so much time and make sure that you actually get the right answer. So instead of going one by one, be like, oh, this one, blah, 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 you need to make a prediction and then be like, okay, which one matches it? And as I did there, my prediction was literally matching up with D, and I eliminated A, B, and C before that. So keep this in mind. Predictions will eliminate this issue. These are the two main issues that I see in my students before I start working with them. And then we do this test and they get a lot better. So please make sure to implement this. It's so, so crucial. Now you need to listen up. This is the only way you should be approaching reading problems. It is the most effective and the only way that you can actually accurately do these questions every single time consistently. A lot of kids will watch this and then just go back to their old process of just skimming the passage, reading it, not even understanding it, and just like blah, 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 and then having to reread and do it again. Okay, terrible. You do not want to be doing this. Once you watch this, you need to actually practice it. Take a practice test in a couple of days. And the questions you get wrong, actively read, use my method, the RAP method, and just understand how you can fix your process from this video. You need to actually implement this. Watching a video is not enough. It is not enough. You need to actually practice it, okay? So that is the takeaway I need you to make. If you just watch this video, yes, it'll help, but it will help a lot more if you actually practice it. So you need to do that, not just watch this video. I keep saying it, but it's something I need to stress. So by far the most efficient way is to wrap it. Now, if you learned a lot from this video, feel free to check out my description. I have a community with students who are crushing it every single day. There's a ton of stuff in it. I can't even list it all on this video. I don't have the time. And I will put a link in the comments too for my free community, which is where I have some Desmos stuff and a full reading course that will just completely change the game for you. So feel free to check that out. And I hope you enjoyed this video and consider subscribing for. I will see you soon.